I am here working at the Folger this year on my research project entitled The Spectre of the State, which examines how the infiltration of English society by paper and other sort of forms and tools of inscription in the 16th and 17th centuries changed the way that people participated politically or understood the government that presided over them. One of the appeals of the Folger for me is that they have a large number of early modern manuscripts that were produced by people who went into archives or record offices, and there were lots of people went in over the course of the 16th and 17th century and did what we think of as being archival research in order to explore all kinds of written materials that were produced in the act of governance. And from those kinds of sources, they would develop policy papers or histories or ideas for how to recalibrate England's institutions or explanations for why things had happened in the past. Part of the project was in part launched on the basis of something I found at the Folger on a short-term fellowship back in 2012. It was a kind of document that I call a book of offices, or what they are lists of crown offices, both in the Chancery and the Exchequer, that is the Treasury, but also in the royal household, with spaces available for the names of the holders of them and the annual fees that are owed to them. And I had at first assumed that these were tools for instrumental governance, right? That somebody within the Treasury or the Chancery would have one of these in order to understand the operation of the government as a whole. They're not owned exclusively or even predominantly by individuals who would have used them in the course of their own practice of governance. They're more often owned by people who are outside of the regime, not working for Elizabeth or subsequently James, but want to get in. And they're almost job listings in a certain sense. And so it got me thinking about what was the function of these things, how were they used, but also what kind of knowledge did they abet. Now, on the one hand, they allowed individuals to sort of isolate and think about individual jobs, but they're also the first document that lays out the sort of almost full institutional, or a relatively full institutional description of English governance. And it allows what one might say is a bird's eye view of some of the institutions of government that nobody else could have seen unless they were at the highest positions of power. I think that my research shows more about Shakespeare's world than about Shakespeare in particular, but it shows that he was operating in a world in which in which technologies were in flux, right? In which media were transforming constantly, in which individuals were sort of captured within what one might, I think, reasonably describe as a media revolution that they were not entirely aware of. I think Shakespeare is operating in an environment in which he knows that people are engaged in that certain way and can engage in certain discussions and about certain kinds of topics, but also obliquely invoke certain recent histories based on people's knowledge of those court politics that otherwise might have been a bit obscure.